like to introduce myself. My name is Hussam Al-Mansour. I'm an assistant professor at the University of Hail in Health Management Department. I'm also a board member of the Saudi Society for Health Administration. Also, I am a member of the Scientific Society of Health Information Management. I also work with the Saudi Commission for Healthcare Professionals. As I work in academia, most of my research related to the health labor force, career development, and equity. Today I would like to speak about the migration and mobility of healthcare workers. I have published a study with colleagues about a few months ago in Human Resources Management for Health Journal. I can share you the whole study if you are interested in that. Well, my study focused on the pull factors that attract like healthcare workers to work in Saudi Arabia. But first, to look at the topic globally, countries have become more engaged in recruiting migrant healthcare workers. All developed countries trying to mitigate the issue of shortage in some specialty. And this is not new. People migrate for different reasons. Like in hundreds of years ago, people go to find water, food. So it's not.
Dr. Hussam, sorry to interrupt you. Do you see the slide while you are talking?
Yes, I do. Yes, I do. Thanks.
And you will then alert me to move it, right?
Yeah, I will let you know. Yes.
Excellent.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Yeah. And about 50 years ago, the World Health Organization called for an investigation to causes of healthcare migrants and a plan to resolve the problem caused by it. This was about 50 years ago, and there was different studies that try to encourage countries to rely on their healthcare workers, and this is good. I know it's not an easy, solution, or that you can do it in the next day, but it would take time. And the investigation found that the main reasons for healthcare migration were social and economic problems with healthcare worker the system in many countries, such as poor planning of healthcare workforce, low job satisfaction, political and economic instabilities, discrimination, and corruption in some of these countries. This was done by the World Health Organization. I know Professor James Boshan, who's working now in Australia. He has done several studies related to health labor force migration. If you can move to the next slide, Prof. Allam. Okay. Migrant healthcare workers come from many different places, contribute significantly to health system workforce where shortage exists. Like looking at global physician mobility, the main donor countries of physician to the world include India, Pakistan, China, Germany, Romania, and Russia. The United Kingdom, Poland, Iran, Italy, and the Philippines. These are about donor countries, so like the source country of healthcare, physician. Regarding nurses, the Philippines is the largest donor of nurses, followed by India and Nigeria. There are other major exporters of healthcare workers, such as Mexico, Malaysia, Colombia, Egypt, and Pakistan. If you can move to the next slide.
Yeah, I'm doing that.
Next slide. Yeah. The importance are mainly, sorry. Okay. You know, the importer are mainly high-income countries such as New Zealand, the United States, the UK, Canada, and Australia. These are the destination countries for healthcare, the main destination country for healthcare workers. The World Health Organization adopted a global code of practice on the international recruitment of health personnel in 2010 to strengthen the understanding and ethical management of international health personnel recruitment through improved data, information, and international cooperation. The code recommends that countries strive for self-sufficiency in their healthcare workers by training and retaining enough healthcare workers to meet the demand. The code noted if the recruitment is appropriately managed, international migration of healthcare workers can contribute to developing and strengthening health system without draining resources. There are the migration of healthcare workers. It has an impact on the source country, also in the destination country, and for individual in themselves. They're trying to make balance. They encourage the developed countries to get sustainability within their resources, not to rely on international migration. But still, even the individuals in these countries, sometimes they have the choice. They have a choice to work if they see opportunities in other countries. It shouldn't be a problem for themselves. Even if they migrate, they will have some challenges in their countries, maybe culture issue, or loneliness, and even the source country, so that they are affected by the shortage of this stuff. They can also get benefits of the resources that will be sent by their people from their receipt countries. If you go to the next slide, Prof. There are different forces that may influence individuals to move from one place and another. They call it push and pull factors. So push factors from the donor countries, and pull countries that for the destination countries. The forces are, as I said, like social, economic, legal, historical, cultural, and educational. Individual assess these factors to find safer place to live, a better quality of life, and leisure, employment and professional development opportunities for themselves and their families. My study was related to the Saudi Arabia. So Saudi Arabia is considered one of the primary receipt countries of healthcare workers migration, importing staff from multiple countries. If you go to the next slide, Prof. Yeah. So in Saudi Arabia, doctors migrate from different countries that enjoy peaceful and cooperative relationship with Saudi Arabia, but mainly come from Egypt, Jordan, Sudan, India, and Pakistan. Nurses mainly come from the Philippines and India. Next slide, Prof. What I look in my study also is to look for the, the pull factors of working in Saudi Arabia. We found 5 factors that influence the mobility of healthcare workers to Saudi. It's the reward, the competitive reward package in Saudi Arabia was the primary pull factors for migrant nurses and doctors. Also job entry requirements. The simplicity of landing a job in Saudi compared to other countries, especially in the especially Western countries. Another factor is religion. Mecca and Medina is the, where's the Kaaba and the Noble Prophet Mosque are in Saudi Arabia. So people, our healthcare workers can, there will be a better access to the religious practices and ceremonies, so they can perform Umrah and Hajj. And I think about these practices. Recommendation of family and friends. People are get influenced from their friends and families. So why don't you come to this place? Have already been there. I'm enjoying my life there. But this is also another pull factor. Changing the work environment. Sometimes people want to change their work environment. They had, they probably want to take a new experience. They want to take a new adventure. So this is also another factor. People maybe they stay for a long time in the same place, so they wanted to change. So these are the 5 factors that we found in our studies that pull nurses and doctors to work in Saudi Arabia. Next slide, Prof. Yes, as mentioned in the global code of the practice on international recruitment and health personnel, the health of all people is essential to achieve peace and security, and is dependent upon the fullest cooperation of individuals and states. The positive impacts of migration and mobility on individuals, such as an improved financial situation and acquisition of experience in a new working environment, should be considered when making, policies or procedure related to the mobility of healthcare workers. That's it, Prof. Allam, and thank you all for listening, and would be happy to answer any question related to my presentation. Thank you so much.
Yes. Assalamu alaikum and good morning. Sorry, I am in fact using my daughter's platform here because I am away from Australia and now in Bangladesh, and I have got 2 hats, as I said before. In Bangladesh, we have, in fact, established a private university called the University of Skill Enrichment and Technology, USET, near Dhaka. And as Allam said, I was, in fact, a member of teaching staff at Griffith University over a long time, and now just retired, and and doing some adjunct jobs too. In any case, of course, you have heard the title of my paper today, but I wanted to present it not with any sort of, kind of formally making a paper. What I did, I wanted to be a storyteller, and storytelling on what? On sustainable development, particularly the UN 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development, as you know, the 2030 Agenda. And this is adopted by the UN General Assembly on 25 September 2015, and can be defined as socially acceptable, promoting environmentally sound economic growth, keeping intergenerational equity in perspective. So in other words, you can see this is a huge sort of agenda. And of course, with COVID started in 2020. Hello?
No, we hear you. We're going to
yeah, there's some
continue,
music
continue,
Okay.
Prof, continue.
Okay. And so what I'm trying to say is we have been, as Allam said, working on last 2 years, working on 3 volumes and published by Routledge in London. And the one is from Springer in Switzerland, and the Nova from New York. So they are all, in fact, taking the liberty to explain sustainable development to the readers. In terms of what? The first one was on climate change and adaptation. The second one was the sustainability and technology and engineering side. And the third one is on Bangladesh's economic sort of development, how it supports the nation. So with this is mainly a research sort of developments, what's happening around with sustainable development approach. So in Bangladesh, as you know, in fact, has achieved sustained and accelerating economic growth with effect from 2010. And the GDP growth rate was over 6% every year for several years consecutively from 2010, over 7% for the next 2 years until 2012, and 8.2% in 2018 and 19, just before the COVID and started. In 2020, currently Bangladesh's GDP growth rate is the highest in Australia, in Asia, according to ADB. The country has, in the meantime, moved up to the status of lower middle income country. It may also be mentioned that in respect of social development, highly significant improvement have been posted, such as in reducing poverty and infant, child, and maternal mortality rates, and expansion of education and health services. In promoting gender equality, Bangladesh has done better than all other South Asian countries, although much more remains to be done or achieved. These high and sustained achievements of Bangladesh are recognized internationally too. Now, the thing is, what were the problems remains as well. And one key problem in Bangladesh economy's forward march is widespread skill deficiencies, And that was the reason why we have established a skill enrichment and technology university. And one suggests the building of purposeful industry-university collaboration, mind you here, industry-university collaboration for addressing this issue, keeping in perspective that in the increasingly competitive world, the aim must be to raise skills training and research and development activities to appropriately competitive, reach competitive levels. This would call for foresighted approach to an adequate investment in education and training, assessing due priority to science and technology. This is the most important issue nowadays. And of course, as you would see, I mean, as Allam started with this problem of post-COVID problems, economic downturn in all over the world is the major issue now, if we like it or not. And Bangladesh is not an exception too. And since some aspects of green energy development and energy storage system needed to be analyzed theoretically in terms of how it's going to be implemented in the future, as we know, the green energy development. So with this in mind, what we tried last 2 years, having out of an international conference in Bangladesh in 2018, we got out 3 books, and as I mentioned before. So now the question is, how Bangladesh was in fact doing with the basic things for livelihood. It says that it claims hunger has now been minimized in Bangladesh, but nutrition security for a significant segment of population remains challenging. Nutrition. So how best this challenge can be addressed, ensuring nutritional security of all in the country by 2041 has been examined too in that particular book. In view of high rate of un- and underemployment in Bangladesh, particularly among the youth, including the educated youth, ideas about how best this challenge can be addressed are certainly addressed in the book. The focus of one of the chapters is occupational qualifications, emphasizing the qualifications and skills acquired should be such that will make the people concerned employable. So we would like to make them employable. The experience of the industrialized countries and possible ways forward for Bangladesh in this regard are also important. So with this in mind, it is, I can say now that it is expectation that there is an expectation Bangladesh's ongoing remarkable development process will get a boost in the year ahead. And it may be noted that the political party power in Bangladesh has recognized in its election manifesto in 2018 that the existing and likely challenges and pitfalls encountered along the development pathway may deflect the process of development and promise to resolve them. But as you know, the nation is, although growing up, but it has got heavily sort of, with the devastating COVID, it has suffered a major, there is a major problem in there. Therefore, it can be expected that the government will, of course, having with those COVID issues, will address the problem seriously in the future, and that is their main aim now. The issue which in another volume we addressed the climate change and adaptation. And in the year 2000, I was at the University of Hull with a professorial fellowship in the UK. And with that position, I wanted to look at a long-term kind of, prospects for this nation. And that one means that from 2000 to 2021, how this country is going to go. So the problem was, then we identified, is Bangladesh likely to be free from poverty by 2021? At the time of this golden jubilee of independence. Secondly, is Bangladesh likely to become middle-level industrialized nation by 2021? And thirdly, what changes need to occur and what institutions need to be in place in achieving the goals of this 2021 vision? So with all these, as you would find, we are lucky, I'm lucky as well, that I survived up till 2021, and then we all fall into, of course, middle of the COVID disaster. So, but what we did, we tried to predict in 2000 that how, and in terms of economic, political, as well as social issues, how this country is going to be shown in 2021. This is all prediction, projection. Of course, as you would know, our prediction in 2001, which is after 20 years, when I still survived, and we have studied that what happened in those 20 years and how climate change was the major issue during this time. And as you know, if you look at the map of the subcontinent, you would find that this is a delta and having almost every alternate year having cyclones and floods and things like that. So it was rather, all those are not the making of the country, nation, but making of the environment. And as a result, the nation had to survive from out of these natural disasters. So with this in mind, I think it would be interesting you to look at what difference it made between 2001 and 2021. And as you know, we have got this COVID from 2020. So, but leaving that 1 year, what progress it made, I think I would like to look at that one from the economic point of view. The GDP per capita advanced to almost ninefold as a result of sustained growth in GDP between 5 and 7.8% in recent decades, having been over 6% every year since 2009-10 and over 7% with effect from 2016-17. And per capita income rose to 1,751 in 2017-18 from only 378 in 2001-2. As you can see, the difference. And now the nation has achieved per capita income of almost $3,000. And this is, some people would like to say that that was a great achievement. Of course, that was a great achievement, but we need sustainability of that. You have to mind that. The inflation rate was between 5 and 9%, and these are all quite few folds compared to 2001. And the presently life expectancy is more than 72 years, but in 2000, it was only 55 or something like that. And the literacy rate was 73% or more at present, and it was only 45% or 50% those days. So, so it looks like economically, it has been a great show over the last 20 years, 2 decades. According to the latest survey results of Bangladesh Bureau of Statistics, BBS, the poverty rate in rural areas is 22.4%, while urban poverty is 18.9%. So the current rate of extreme poverty, which means extreme poverty is when you call it that they haven't got any employment or any way to get income. So as a result, you would find that those people were around 12.9%, and now compared to 17.6% 6 years ago. And poverty has declined steadily, and other social indicators such as infant mortality and also improved significantly, as I mentioned before. So what does it mean? It means that last 2 decades was quite, some people would like to argue that that was a golden sort of era for the nation. But now, as you know, that every nation is having that problem of COVID crisis. And as you know, they have been trying hard to overcome that, but it is not that easy because the exports declined and imports increased, as you know, macroeconomic terms, what was the situation then. So with this in mind, I would like to talk about that how we can, or Bangladesh can overcome this problem. The problem, to overcome them, need industrialization, simply industrialization, North-South collaboration, information technology and science improvement, agriculture and food security, public health, climate change and environment, and population, economics, and business are the major issues. So as you know, to some extent, this is our second book. How I'm going, Allam, another 5 minutes?
I think your time is completed. So if you can conclude quickly.
Okay. So
Thank
what
you.
I'm trying to conclude with is, I think, as I said, the what happened over the last 2 decades, what's happening in the world. Just I want to bring in world in there too. And in our third book, we have examined that, and the list of the most powerful economies in the world by 2050, if materialized, suggests a decline of the West and rise of the large population-wise nations like China, India, Indonesia, Pakistan, Iran, and Bangladesh, among others. Out of, say, 9 billion people in 2050, amongst 8 billion would enjoy prosperity. Now, they would be left 1 billion all over. So Bangladesh is also not an exception. It will have a major people reversed to poverty, in fact, with the present going. So if that happens, and I would like to bring in about the last Nobel laureates, 2 Nobel laureates in 2018. And they are mainly trying to say how the world can, in 2018, can help these developing nations more. What I'm trying to say in the rest few minutes, an article by an economist, Popov of Cardiff University, he states in one part that both the winners of the Nobel are, in view of the basis of economic growth, should not be solely based on producing goods in factories. And William Nordhaus and Paul Romer, those 2 winners, and they mention that there are 3 reasons or areas one must look at very carefully. The reasons behind economic growth, why sustainable growth is important, and how to address this threat from climate change. These are the 3 major key areas. And Allam was trying to say that I was also with WASD 20 years back, but the point is we have never kind of foresee that this is going to happen in the years to come. As you know, there is a net zero emission achievement by UN or introduced by UN with different sort of COP meetings. And I was in COP 15, that one in Paris. And there what we have achieved. And until now, what was the difference? There's not much difference in the climate change area. And as you can see now, COVID is another burden. And even the UK Prime Minister, as Allam was saying that we are not ready yet. Everyone is saying they are not ready yet. We have to do something about climate change. Without that, net zero emissions, there was 2050 targets, and now they would like to push it to 2060. China was saying 2060, and other countries also saying 2060. And with this note, I suppose what I say should be, the burden should be on the shoulders of the more developed nations too. Thank you.
thank you very much, Prof. Allam, and thank you very much, WIST, for giving me this opportunity. So, good morning, good evening, and good afternoon, everyone, wherever you are. So, today my topic is sustainable development and business schools. So I will try my level best for those students who are specifically in the business schools. So I will get your problem statement and how you can cater it into the research objectives and how you can get your results regarding to the sustainable development goals specifically in the business area. I will try my level best to present some of the business cases or some of the real stories or the impacts that how we have been created in the business schools. So let me introduce myself. Recently, I joined one of the top business schools of Pakistan, which is, you can see the Bahria Business School, and currently I'm working as a dean and professor over there in the management department. So it's a AACSB Business Education Alliance member, and you can see some of other my credentials here. So later on, you can, I already shared my presentation with the Prof. Allam, and later on you can see it and you can Google me, or you can contact me for any collaboration. So now the question is, what is sustainability? So everyone knows that sustainability is very important nowadays, but let me give you a simply a history that it has been derived from the World Commission on Environment and Development, the WCED, in 1987, which has kind one of the top cited definition to meet the needs of present without compromising the ability of future generation to meet their own needs. So I'm not going into the detail because I know that everyone is well aware of this definition. So why we need sustainability? So as the previous speakers presented that, and Prof. Allam also presented that there is economic growth, specifically in the shape of the climate change environment. And really, it has devastated Pakistan and every country recently in some of the other countries. The floods we have already seen in China, Hong Kong, and every country. And specifically the temperature is rising, and really it is the dilemma for the human civilization that to reach to the minimum level of the temperature. Similarly, you can see that the previous century and the current century is also recorded as the hottest century of human civilization. And there is somewhere there's a massive rain, some peat fires and landsliding you can see in the pictures as well. So the environment is a real threat to our future generation, the environmental issues. Similarly, you can see that we are losing some of the biodiversity and water scarcity problems are coming over here around the globe. So again, there's an alarming situation that how to address these challenges. So similarly, you can see that the economic side of the economies. So you can see that there is an uneven distribution among the economies, and it has created some noise around the continents and around the countries. So you may see in this picture. So how to curb these social, economic, environmental issues? So to curb these issues, the agenda of sustainable development is one of the eliminating factors that how to reduce these social, economic, and environmental issues. So you can see that the United Nations has promulgated some of the sustainable development goals. So there are 169 targets and 231 indicators that how to curb one of the goals like no poverty, zero hunger, and so on and so forth. So what is the role of business in this scenario? So you can see that you can see some of the other directions of the sustainable development goals. Nowadays we can call it social, economic, environmental, and nowadays they have added inclusivity and governance. So you can see that every dimension is a research area. So everyone can work on this area, and everyone can contribute to these areas. That how business schools, how business graduates, how business organizations, how business university indicators. similar agenda of sustainable development for sector, and we can call it education for sustainable development. So the new area is emerged from the sustainable development goals. Where we embed the SDGs goals into the education sector, we can call it education for sustainable development. So the same definition is here, that how to curb the sustainability problems in the from the perspective of education. So you can see the definition here. So we can cater these problems through the education sectors, and specifically from the business schools. So there are some assessment tools are available specifically in the business area, or the in the education sector, that how we can curb these sustainability issues. So you can see the research, we can include it into the operations, student engagement, planning, administration, innovation, identity, sustainability, and campus reporting. So later on, I will show you some of the real examples over here. So you can see that we have some. Okay, so you can see that there are some environmental issues. So most of the biodiversity we have declined, and nowadays we are facing the water scarcity problems. So similarly, you can see that there are some economic issues. There is some economic disparity. There some of the assets are in the with the uneven distribution. You can see over here, and it has created unsustainable practices around the globe. So how to curb these issues, social, economic, environmental issues? We are required sustainable practices, and sustainable development goals are some of the initiatives that can curb these problems. So there are 169 targets and 231 indicators. We can address these social, economic, and environmental issues. So you can see in another way, look like this, that nowadays we are called it social, economic, environmental, and inclusivity and governance issues. So actually, this is one of the each dimension is one of the areas for research. So those students who are intended to start working on these areas, so they can look to these practices, and they can start their research accordingly. Now, how sustainable development goals are embedded into the education sector. So the new dimension emerged. We can call it education for sustainable development. It means that when we are heading into our systems, so you can call it education for sustainable development. So you can see the definition here. Simply, it portrays that how to address the sustainable development issues in the education sector. So simply, you can call it education for sustainable development. You can see here we have assessed all the indicators that how education for sustainable development can be implemented, and there are some indexes over here. And we have studied those indexes around the globe, and we can find some of the anomalies over here. And later on, you can see at the end, we have our own publication. We have proposed our own index that would be the most comprehensive index that cover everything like education, research, operations, that how to embed sustainable practices into the education for sustainable development. So now I will come that how the agenda of education for sustainable development in the business schools, that how business school can curb these sustainable development goals. So you can see that the same definition from the World WCED. So you can see that the same definition was promulgated over here for the business sectors. So to meet the needs of enterprise and its stakeholders today, while enhancing, sustaining, and protecting the human and natural resources. So you can see that you can combine those definitions, and this is the agenda of business sector, that what we can demand from the business community and from the business graduates. So they will around this definition. So it's all about the stakeholders management, and you can see some of the interchangeable terms were here. So simply you can use it as a sustainability practices. You can call it triple bottom line, ESG, SRIs, green businesses, and so on and so forth. But the main agenda is all about the stakeholders management. In Pakistan, you can see that our business council, they are also focusing on the sustainable practices, and they have included one full standard of the social responsibility, where you can focus the education for sustainable development. Similarly, AACSB has also included one section is a social responsibility and impact creation from your practices. So it means the business councils are also the business schools are also interested to implement the sustainable development goals in the business education. Similarly, you can see that the Global Reporting Initiative also promulgated some of the guides for the business practices, that how to implement sustainable practices. In the coming slide, you can see that these are the practices which are demanding by the regulatory bodies like United Nations, and in Pakistan as well. And in every country, they are demanding that the business organization are required to practices like in sustainable practices. So to the business graduate, these practices should be highlighted, and they should work on these practices like you can see water, energy, material, employment, decent work, and something like that. And it is already related with the sustainable development goals. So in one of our research, we have modified this index, and we have modified some of the other dimensions rather than to focus on the GRI practices. And you can see, and Emerald awarded us best award for excellence outstanding papers. You can see, you can Google this paper, and you can try to grab some of your research areas from these, from each dimension you are here. You can see over here. So some of the companies in Pakistan, they are also reporting GRI reporting. I will not going into the detail. So similarly, the Pakistan Stock Exchange is also focusing that companies are required to report the sustainable development practices. You can see that the glimpse from their websites over here, and you can see some banks are reporting sustainable development practices. So it means that this is the agenda of business schools and every education sector, that to require to educate their business graduates regarding the sustainability and sustainable development goals. Now I will show some of the success stories very quickly, that what we have done in our business school. So you can see that some of my students are also writing reports for the universities, and they are applying for the impact ranking. So you can see this is the report already written by my students, and we applied for the impact ranking, and we got impact ranking. So later on, I'm just going to invite everyone that we can collaborate for the impact ranking reportings, and it would be available from our side to you. You can see that my students applied for the impact ranking. They have written this report and applied for it, and we got the impact ranking for one of my previous universities, for especially from the business school. So similarly, we are working with the Pakistan Stock Exchange. I'm the member of developing the guide for ESG and sustainable development goals reporting, which is, you can see that this is the agenda of sustainable stock exchanges. Again, this is the agenda of the sustainable development goals and United Nations. You can see over here. So we are working. We have already developed one guide, and we have given to the Pakistan Stock Exchange, and nearly they will implement these guides for the companies. We have also designed some of the sustainability and sustainable development policy for my university. So later on, if someone is interested, so I can share, and we can collaboratively work on it as well for their university. Similarly, we have designed one course, corporate sustainability and financial performance, and everything you have seen designed by my students, and we have graduated more than 5 batches from this course, and they are serving the industry nowadays, and they are writing reports, sustainability reports, sustainable development reports for the business organizations. So we have started it in spring 2020, and many students have been graduated from this course. You can see that these are some of our top journals we have published from that domain, education for sustainable development. We have focused on the integration, how to integrate. This is one of the main issues already highlighted by the United Nations, that how to integrate sustainable practices, specifically in the business sector, as well as nowadays they are focusing on the education sector. So you can see we are working on the gender diversity, we are working on the female production, we are working on the real estate, we are working on the education sector and the Islamic banking industry as well. So there are many publications available also on my profile. You can see, and we can collaborate as well. Similarly, we have published a few books like Research on Sustainable Development in Malaysia. This is edited book, already I published. Another book is coming for the circular economy. We are also working with the Saudi Arabian government. We have already submitted one proposal to Saudi government for the circular economy in the manufacturing sector. We are also writing in the newspaper just to aware the stakeholders. So you can see the glimpse over here. Okay, this is the impact slide, Prof. I want to Prof. Am I audible to everyone?
Carry on, Professor. Carry on.
Okay, great. This is my some of my last slides were here. This is the impact we have created in the last 5 years. You can see I have developed one center for sustainability, sustainable development area. They are writing reports. They are writing policies for the government. We have already gained some of the grants over here, like ₹1 million. We have conducted some of the international conferences. The one I am presenting over here as well, it is also will be the part of the later my report. Some book chapters I already mentioned. So this is the impact you can see, and we are working more for the sustainable practices in the upcoming years, inshallah. So I have developed one course for the University of Kentucky, Education for Sustainable Development, the way forward, and we have trained more than 400 faculty members for the same what I mentioned in the previous slides. And I'm giving you this that we can train some other international members as well. So it will be free of cost from my side to all of the conference members. So you can see the claims over here. Okay, so these were my collaborators with my previous universities. You can see I have worked with these universities, and I'm working with these universities for the Education for Sustainable Development goals. So that's all from my side, and this is my profile, and everyone can reach me and through Prof. Allam, and I'm working with the Prof. Allam. Once again, very thank you very much for giving me this opportunity to present over here. And I'm really sorry for the distortion from my line. I just changed my line, so no, it's okay. So you may ask any question if you have. Thank you very much once again.
We're talking about the SDGs in higher education. What's going on here in the local arena? In general, I'm reporting to you live from Kuwait. And what's going on here is we're having a problem getting our SDGs together as a whole, as a country. So recently, within the past 2-3 days at the UN summit that's still taking place in New York, we've had to push back our country agenda a few years. So now instead of having our vision or New Kuwait vision, which was initially supposed to have a time frame of 2035, we've pushed it back to 2040. So we've got a lot of grounds to cover, and what I'm trying to, or what I'd like to present to you in this conference is what we're doing on the ground. So it's more practical, and a lot more of what I'm facing being in that, a practitioner in the field. So here's a gist of what we're going to cover, the SDGs as opposed to CSR. There's a whole debate about that, and there's many reporting mechanisms, and it's getting a little confusing for us who are trying to cover these grounds in terms of SDGs. How are we doing in higher education locally, and the reporting styles and mechanisms that we are currently using, or we are ad hoc using in some ways. So the ESG, of course, here is some very conventional terms. We either report them as ESGs, environmental, social, and governance, or as CSR, corporate social responsibility, and of course the DEI. And as one of my colleagues previously mentioned, the diversity, equity, and inclusion isn't just an external thing that we're trying to work on. We're also trying to bring it back to the internal happenings in our own university. Just to give you a little bit of context, so we've got a handful of universities committed to these goals, and we've seen them time and again reporting under the umbrella of the PUC, which is a Private Universities Council, and the private universities in Kuwait are exploding. We have got now over 12 universities, I believe, and a bunch of colleges, which gives us a bit more flexibility in comparison to our counterparts, which is the government-run entities. So we've got a little bit of leeway. What we're doing, or typically this is what we see, we try to split them in these arenas: environmental, social, and governance. And of course, it could possibly cover a whole bunch of activities. So it's nice that we are kind of governed by the Private Universities Council, because they do ask the private universities to submit a general report. They don't specify or give any training, unfortunately, to what they expect in terms of ESG or CSR towards SDG goals, but we are getting that ball rolling in that it's being incorporated in the general missions and visions and values of the universities. Have we streamlined it? No. And I'm sure the practitioners in the field can, report, or what we see them reporting continuously is that we're pushing from the bottom and the top, where management and, the other stakeholders stand. They're also doing what they can to incorporate these elements, but there's still a huge gap in between. So this is what I try to assess. And the way that we're presenting, the way we present it to those who are the policymakers, whether it's on an institutional level or on a country level, is we try to give them the data. I mean, is it going to impact the bottom line? Of course it is, hopefully towards the better. That's what we're expecting. That's what research is telling us. Is it going to be an immediate return? No, most likely not. However, this is a long-term project, and we all should be aware that the manifestations are going to happen, but they may not be immediate, and that's probably why the bottom line doesn't get impacted, or it's hard to measure how the bottom line is impacted through these initiatives. So here's another point of view that we try to get the policymakers to say, or to recognize the immediate need for these elements to be incorporated throughout the institution. When you're doing your work internally, whether it be diversity, and this is what we kind of see nowadays, because we need to show them, we need to quantify the efforts. We see a lot of diversity going on in terms of the institutes reporting how many males versus females are working at the institutes. And then we try to push that onto a societal level and say, well, we've got a good hold on the gender issue here in terms of hiring and how many males versus females. We've got a good hold on that. And then we try to take it up a level and see where we can have this work-life balance. And then it gets a bit messy. So it falls under equality, equity, and it's a ball that we're still trying to turn into something that could be sustainable. As well as we give them that bigger vision. Once we've got these social or these internal issues streamlined in whatever way we could, then it moves on to these societal level markers, which turn into national indices. And that's the gap that we're seeing. We're seeing the national goals, and unfortunately, they're not on target. Yet we deny that there is a link between the societal habits, which we've got a bunch of social markers that are a bit, how to say this politically correct, that are not exactly what we wish them to be. So we've got violence on the rise. We've got, unfortunately, drugs and illegal use of substances on the rise. We've got youth unemployment. And, these all go back into what we're doing on the ground, not only as people working in the higher education institutes, but also educating those in that era of their life. So people don't decide their futures, they decide their habits, and their habits decide their futures. Sure. So let's look at the habits and how we can integrate whatever our visions are in higher education. What are we doing so far? Again, it's the conventional stuff. We're doing some reports here and there, and we're getting away with this idea that we are conforming or at least pushing this CSR versus or integration with SDG agenda. But what frustrates me most, and I think this is also a recurring theme with those who are in the field, is that we've got our hands tied. We've got maybe policies that we've put forth. We've got the support of the higher management or whatever stakeholders on an institutional level, or even at a national level, but we really need to push a bit further in terms of what we're doing in the classroom, because as it trickles down, it's what we do in the classroom that counts most. I need to understand what it is that the students in front of me know and what they expect and how they tie it all together. So I've come across this really, I've come across, or I've done a couple of, I've attended a couple of conferences with what the UK students are doing. So it's the Education for Sustainable Development. Again, that's what we're trying to do here, as per the Higher Education Academy. And it tells you that it's basically the process of equipping students with the knowledge, understanding, skills, and attributes. So you've got two elements here. You've got the internal organizational elements that need to be in place, and as well as what we're doing to, you know, on a classroom level that really integrates these visions in order to reach the bigger goals. So knowledge, skills, and attributes. How do we get that? We make sure that we've got several elements going at the same time: formal curriculum, informal curriculum, and subliminal curriculum. What I've noticed is, you know, sometimes we randomly have these talks formally in terms of what the SDGs are, how much we know about them, how we can better contribute to them in terms of, you know, a student being in higher education. So we give these talks and we try to formalize them, and we try to do some things on a very small scale in the classroom, but that doesn't always work. As a matter of fact, I've noticed that it doesn't work at all. It's just information in and out. You've got to get into the habit of having these subliminal curriculums as well as the informal curriculum. What's happening behind the scenes? You've really got to support the students in not only understanding what the SDGs are, but also how they can contribute to it on a daily level, on a, you know, on a regular level, in order for it to be sustainable in their own lives, right? So you've got these subliminal curriculums as well as the informal curriculums. For me, as a practitioner and a researcher in the field, that's what matters most. Once you've got the subliminal and informal curriculums subconsciously in their brains, the formal curriculum becomes more of an output of what you standardize in their brains, and try to help them understand how crucial it is for them to be part of this. So for example, subliminal, I would do something along the lines of, you know, in one of my critical thinking classes, for example, we bring the newspapers in and we try to see what's going on in the society around us. So we say, oh, well, we've got bad weather. What's going on? The flu is on the rise. We've got children having eczema and a whole bunch of other skin problems. Well, let's look at the environmental index. Oh, well, we have a problem. Nobody's really paying attention to that. But guess what? If we're not paying attention to that, we're still being impacted by it. And that kind of, you know, triggers that big question mark. Oh, well, we need to do something about it. Well, what can we do? And then we get into the informal curriculums. We've got the clubs, we've got the backbone that can support and re-emphasize the subliminal curriculums. And then we take it a step further. That's when the talks and the formalities kick in. Then it becomes a complement to everything else that we're doing. So I think for the longest time, or at least for the past 5 years, we've been trying to do the formal curriculum, getting, you know, those talks in and trying to give them assessments on several things that have to do with the SDGs. But I need it to become a habit, and this is what I am currently working on. Here's one of the best things that I've ever come across. Very simple, very easy. It's from the SOS, again, from the University of Liverpool. Look them up, students, on sustainability. I forgot what the acronym actually stands for. But here's a very simple way to start. You've got the 17 SDGs up top. And what we did on an institutional level this semester, or we're planning to do, we started very roughly last semester, was that we incorporated an ESG committee within our department, just because it, you know, those big formal decisions take a while to trickle down and to really be implemented. So on a department level, we did an SDG subcommittee, if you will. And what we're going to do is, we started last semester, is trying to look at all of the different courses that we offer at the business school and just, you know, categorize whether any of these SDGs on a large scale and on minute scale are either covered, a little bit mentioned, or there is a clear mention of the goal itself. So this is just to get the ball rolling, to see how we can work in synergy in order to develop these, you know, the mental inspirations to have this be something of importance to the students in higher education. So the gist of it all is it's not just a curriculum. It shouldn't be just a curriculum. It should be something that works in synergy, both formally and informally. Here's what I found. I don't know if you can see the citation below. It's from the Harvard Business School. And they've done this research over a number of years where they've taken the gist of it all, where they've looked at several ESG or at, you know, on a grand scale sustainability reports, and they've highlighted the key or the redundant issues that they saw along the way. So here's some of the the top 5 that they've seen. And what we see is that everybody wants ESG data, summarized tables, and, you know, I've seen some of my colleagues which previously presented. Those are some very impressive tables, and we've got, you know, a long way to go if I were to compare what we're doing here to what you guys are doing. Hats off. But the ESG data tables continue to be an effective way, so we're going to use them. It's a matter of trust. Stakeholders now expect external assurances, and they want to see what's going on and how that impacts the bottom line. And that's a bit of a challenge, as we know, because it's not exactly streamlined. And even if it was, at least from where I am now in this part of the world, that's not very easy to do. You blinded me with ESG, and I like how they put that, because it's a requirement in some way, but it's not really a requirement. It's ad hoc. It's not compulsory, of course, as we know, but maybe it's time to look at it as though it is a compulsory, something that should be incorporated in the hands-on trainings and education. Everybody wants to rule the world. They've done this in the US, so they've got the US companies reference here. It's consistency. You know, they've looked at the different reports and they said, well, consistency goes a long way. So if you've measured it a certain way in the past, you could update it, of course, but the consistency remains important, especially that there's many different regulatory bodies coming forward and asking us to do this. So it's important to stay also up to date. We're always under pressure to weigh in on the social issues. Yes, of course we are, but we also need to take into consideration what and how much we're actually impacting the people we expect to do the work in order to make a difference. And those are the students or society in general. Oops, I went. All right, so here's their what they found was the most common titles of ESG reports, and here's what they found: 33% was environmental, social, and governance, and then you've got the sustainability report, the corporate responsibility report, and so on. So in higher education, we've got a mix of that. And again, you've got to keep in mind that this is not a compulsory aspect. What I've seen repeatedly here in Kuwait, they report it as community engagement or community relations. And it's basically, unfortunately, it's on an institutional level, and it doesn't necessarily incorporate or even involve the students. So, oh, here's what we did. We went to a beach cleanup, right? Or we attended a marathon. It needs to be a lot more in the classroom hands-on than what we're currently doing. And I'm just talking in general. There are some private institutes, even private universities, that are going the extra mile, but we've got a long way to go. And then you've got, who's the primary committee, or who's responsible for doing these or gathering data or whatever? It's 28% of the time it's not specified. And I think that's, also what we're experiencing in higher education, again, at least where I'm at. Sometimes it goes to marketing, sometimes it goes to the office of the student affairs, sometimes it's with the graduate office. So it's not as clear, and it shouldn't be. However, if we were to continue with this initiative that we've got an ESG committee within our department, hopefully we want to take it up a couple of notches, and that would be the entity responsible. But looking at the rest of the world, it's okay for us not to have a specific person reporting this. Of course, it's going to be from different departments. Even if we do have an ESG committee or whatnot, they are going to be pulling in and hopefully guiding the rest of the departments on what it is that they can or should, or give them some guidelines. That would be nice as well. What are some future opportunities? We've got emissions and energy, and this is what the top US schools are doing. Health and well-being, campus operations. We've done something very small, but it was so impactful. In Kuwait, as you know, it's a desertous country. We've got a very dry terrain. So in the summertime, one of our suggestions in my previous place of work was to have all of the faculty pull their shades down, because it was a glass building. Just putting those shades down and reducing the temperature of the air conditioning really made an impact. And it was only when we brought it to the forefront and measured it that we realized, oh, wow, that was, a big change. As well as the nature and ecosystem, culture, and learning. So these are some future opportunities that we can incorporate once we get that ball rolling, and really emphasizing the need for students to understand the importance of their contributions and the lack of their contributions as well. That's all I've got for now. I hope I didn't take too much of your time. You can definitely reach out. I'm doing research in the field as well, and trying to really understand the scope of it in our country in comparison as well to what the rest of the DCC is doing, which is very plausible at the moment. Thank you for your time, and I hope that you found it useful.
What I was actually thinking is my background is actually coming from the, as previous I told, actually they're coming from software engineering, and the previous presenter also talked about the artificial intelligence. I think it was really great things to hear from previous presenter. Now my topics is actually, especially I'm now trying to understand, as all of us know that digital technology is actually doing a lot of things. However, what is the behind the scene? What is actually the opposite side at the moment that we may need to be think about for our next generation, especially when we are teaching in the classroom, how or what we need to be think about, that what is the wrong thing and what is the right thing happening, especially when you are thinking about the education. I think that is the most important part, that we need to care about our curriculum, content, and whatever we are doing and what is happening in the real world. So, Prof, can you go to the next slide if you don't mind, just to quickly? So, because, yeah. So, in this digital technology changing the world, obviously, I'm sure all of us, and especially many presenters actually today touch with the technology, and whatever subject and sector we are doing, I think we are all under these few topics that I'm putting in the screen now, like in business disruption, as you understand that a lot of things is happening, the Hoover, Airbnb, and sort of thing are actually coming as a business disruption with the big society, especially when you are looking at the bigger scale of economy in the society or in the country. Then integration and the cloud, actually all are actually in the cloud computing, and if people are trying to integrate with the SMEs and business MNC to work together. However, we still in the dark side, that how much is actually integration is happening with the small business and the big companies, how they are actually working together, or they are actually killing each other. And you can see actually the one example, like in most of the high street, there is a lot of big companies actually closing down, and the reason behind is actually not integration with the small companies, because the globalization, because of the issues in the integration of the both side of the companies, as a small and bigger. Then we know the big data, as a lot of people are actually having a huge issues, or many countries still not understood how big data is working. and what is the big data is actually important, and what is the negative impact in the society or in the country with the big data. Then intelligence system, as you seen, like an artificial intelligence, one of my colleague already, like an earlier presenter, especially emphasize the artificial intelligence, AI. But that is actually the something that a lot of people don't understand, and a lot of people really need to be care about the AI, whether it is system, whether it is the implementation, whether it is a implemented or going to be implemented. There is a lot of backside or dark side is still in their artificial intelligence that we need to understood from the academic side to the business side to the policymaker. So I think that this conference, especially to see how the intelligence system can be implemented in the education and especially higher education, so then everybody can save and integrate it in the real world. Then Internet of Things is now our life is actually totally complicated because of Internet of Things, because we are all in somehow integrated to the system, whether you believe or not, whether we thinking or not. I think we are all working with the internet, which is actually integrated our life in the Internet of Things. So anywhere we are going, anything we are seeing, I think we are all in the integrated, and we have to be very careful about the with the negative side of Internet of Things, and how it is actually destroy our daily life or the monthly, weekly, even yearly. So you have to think about feed forward for the next 5 years, how Internet of Things actually making our life more difficult. Obviously, we are all integrated with the system. We are all happy with the using those artificial intelligence and the Internet of Things, even whatever it is. But we have to think about how our impact, especially human impact, human interaction is actually need to be identified, and making our relationship between a student and teacher, or a business and obviously customer, or supplier and seller. So these are all actually need to be carefully to analysis, especially those people are, or we are analyzing the data or doing some technology, that how we can make our digital changes in the real world. Prop, can you go to next slide, please? Mm-hmm. And then what is actually important? Why digitalization now coming? Obviously, if you look at the, as I said earlier, like those 5 or 6 things really is actually coming across the sector or the academic world, as we are all sitting here mostly. I do believe that we are all mostly in the academic world, and we are trying to analyzing the real scenario to giving the business world or the government, so then can work together. However, what is the negative side? What is the negative impact? I think we are not many people or many researchers are thinking in that far. So my intention is, as I said, I'm really doing some work with the colleague and especially the year 20 to 30 years old people, how they can actually see the dark side of the technology. Really, what is the negative impact? What this will be coming to the real world within 5 years. And if we see this last 5 years intention and integration between COVID and obviously pre-COVID, post-COVID, and before COVID, we can see the change of human intention, human life exchanges, business condition, and the attention of the future understanding about the sustainability. I know that's a lot of colleague. I saw the beginning, some of colleague or presenter actually talk about the sustainability of the climate change and all sort of thing. I think inside the climate says, whatever we are talking, we have to think about the digitalization, actually how this digitalization is actually changing the world, and what is the impact of the globalization, and how this will be impact in our life. And what is when we say impact, actually it is also going to be effect of our next generation. What is the dark side, how we can investigate in the negative impact to the real world, so that people can have the benefit of the education, of the business, and the making the policy for the next generation. Prop, next slide, please. So these are, I'm going to jumping, but if you look at the right hand side, I put it like in 20 digital technology example. However, this is the positive side or whatever you're seeing. So what is the negative thing? What we can see those things if not working, if not actually helping us, how we can do that normal life. So in the right side, you can see that we said gather the data and the match provision to needs of share with the others, monitor and evaluate and deliver digital skill. Now, if we can check the next slide, Prop, please go to the next slide. As I have a less time, I want to show the, no, go next one, please, if you don't mind, go next one. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that is actually coming to the dark side framework. Like in obviously, if you look at it here, like in the very inside of the green one, or the where is the mouse, you can see foundation skill, especially you can see, I think you can see that 4 things in behind. One is the communication. We are talking the handling information and content. We are talking transacting and the problem solving. So when we say dark side, actually what we said, like in the outside circle, if you look the outside, be safe, legal, and the confidence online. That is, I think, the one of the things we have to be very much careful about, how we are safe in the online. Are we actually, whatever we are doing, are we in making ourselves in the safe side? Are we actually connecting with the wrong people, or we are actually doing whatever we are in the somehow connecting our information, sharing our information is illegally? And you know that GDPR obviously coming to in the UK and some of the European countries. I don't know, most of the world probably not carrying this GDPR as a data sharing and data content. It will be coming in very soon, or many, many people I'm sure will be sued to each other, especially lawmaker or law firm are, I think, waiting for this thing, that they will be talking about the GDPR, so they can, everybody can make their life in more easy, or making more complexity. So let's see what will be coming next 2-3 years. However, this framework is actually thinking to understand like how we communicate and how we actually sharing our work, what all sort of things, problem we are solving by the technology, how the artificial intelligence, Internet of Things, all other technology that we are using, that is helping us or not, and how we make ourselves more safe legally and with the confidence. So these are actually thinking that we mean the dark side, that we need to care, we need to be sharing a lot of information in the future, but am we understood that what we are doing and how it will be creating the framework for everybody, and especially for next generation as we are academic to teach in the classroom. Prop, if you go to next slide, couple of slides, and now 2 minutes I will finish. So if we look at the little bit, it was a dark implication of the digitalization for the individual, organization, and society, how it is actually affecting. Now, just one example, Facebook and Twitter, in a lot of information we are sharing, sometimes it is actually giving the psychological impact, sometimes it is actually destroy the society, creating the unreasonable issues, or making the false statement and making the society ups and down, uprising, downgrade of the people's life and sort of thing. So criticism is a lot of things there, especially Facebook and Twitter or Instagram, whatever you're doing. But we have to think about like how we actually getting those things in the first place, to understand then what side of information and what we need to do and what we need to care and not to do in the future. So that is actually dark side we mean in the digital world. Next slide, please, ma'am, or Prop. So changing world of work, obviously. Now, yes, we understood, like, and if you look at the, we all are, I mean, before and after COVID, that working from home and working in the different mode of our, daily activities. However, this pattern is still need to understand that how much is actually a negative impact to coming the this workload or changing the work from. If you look at the one of the example, used to be you have a, like an 6 hours work in office, and people have a some meeting and you can to move one place to another place. But when you are doing as an online, you are not actually moving anywhere. You are actually sitting in it 8 hours in the computer, and your boss, your line manager, or we can tracking that person have a half an hour's break, and this would fill up your diary. So this is also impact, and this is the dark side. Like, and we are thinking, yes, I'm working from home or working for office, so we don't need to move anywhere. Like one of the example today, this conference, we are all in the different part of the world. The beauty is we are all in the sitting in a one place. That is a good thing. But if you look at your workload allocation from your line manager, or if you are working in the big organization, and the people are just catching your every minute that where are you, what are you doing? So this is actually the, again, negative impact for your life. Even a lot of people are becoming ill because of the transition and in the reflection of your time load in the workload in the system. So you cannot move anywhere. Maybe sometimes you don't eat food also. You are putting in the camera off and you're listening and they're continuing your work. So these are all actually the dark side. How is it impacting? How is it negatively influence our life. Next slide, please. I think it's the last one, probably a finish one. That's fine. I don't want to talk because it's all impact of digitalization. Go to next one so I can finish the. No, last one. I want to see the last finish here. Thank you. So what I actually mean here, as it was rushing for me, and I think the audience may get some influence and getting some information that what we mean here. Actually, my plan is to, talking and writing a book, especially for dark side of the technology, that how the negative impact and what is the full pleasure of technology that we are using at the moment, and how it will be impacting, and all negative issues which can be identified and influenced for the next generation, so they can actually justify, they can evaluate, they can analyze, and they can use which technology and how they can use for their work and career. So thank you very much. Sorry for rushing.
I'm Professor Rashid. I am the professor in Artificial Intelligence, Allam University, Saudi Arabia. The objective of my presentation will be the artificial intelligence overview, recent technology, significance of AI tools, role of the tools in the technique and in the education, some recommendation for the future direction. First, I'd like to give the overview of the artificial intelligence. What is the artificial intelligence? Is the multidisciplinary field. It is combination of the different techniques and the technology for the human intelligence. And artificial intelligence is very impact on the society now. In the digital age, most of the applications they are making out of this technology, and it is artificial intelligence is very the transformative force, and it changes the traditional teaching and practices to the innovative and the learning practice. And now most of the students and the teachers they are using the AI application or AI tool for their studies. So this AI can be used in the finance, transportation, and the other industry also. Also, it will help for the personal assistant like the Google, Siri, and Alexa. They are using the personal assistant using the AI technology. Also, it is help in the disease diagnosis for the earlier detection of the disease that the patient have. That is very one of the most application tools in the healthcare using the AI. Also, the drug discovery, we can find out the different type of the drugs, new drugs with the combination of the from the combination of the various chemical reactions that we can find the new drugs discovery using the AI. So machine learning. It will be minimize the human interface because the machine is already trained, and the programmer no need to write the more programming on that. So it is usually minimize the human interface, also save the time. So deep learning is the subset of the machine learning. We will see what is deep learning, how it is will be help in the healthcare. Also, the machine learning is a technique for the algorithms and the computing units. Computing units means most of the process, most of the unit can be processed at the same time. So it will be give out the correct accuracy, correct output with the efficiency. This is the part of the artificial intelligence. Before in the 1990s, you are using the AI. Now in 2000, it is come the machine learning. Now you are using the deep learning. So basically, the difference between the machine and the deep learning is that machine learning, if there is a small amount of the data set, data, we do have the small amount of the data that we can using the machine learning. If the large amount of the data is that, we can use the deep learning. So the AI can be used for the data analysis and the interpretation, for the quick and accuracy, enabling a researcher to identify the patterns. With the help of the AI, we can find out the pattern and different correlation between the data set, that it is easy to find out, which is not possible by the manually. AI also used in the healthcare application, genomics to detection of the genes, climate science, and the social science. It is very useful, very lot of application there that we can use it in order to get the correct data. Also, you can use the predictive modeling. We can make a model about the future, about the forecast future outcomes or the disease outbreaks, if any disease is there, like the coronavirus. So will we find the data set like this type of the data is that means it is indication in the future for the coronavirus or another type of the virus that we can make the model for that we can find out the disease about that. Also the stock market, if the price is increase, decrease, that we can model to predict about this also. Also the climate change is a very important application of the AI. Using the model, we can detect the climate change. We have that application. So it is also used in the finance, epidemiologically and environment science in order to detection of the diseases. Most of the important application is the drug discovery and the healthcare. So with the help of the AI, we can find out, we can analyze the different molecular structure in order to find out the new drugs. So we can analyze the molecular structure and combine the different molecules with the help of the AI to discover the new drugs. AI also, it is used for the diagnosis of the diseases, the early prediction of the disease, interpreting medical images. So there is a medical different images like the X-ray, CT scan, other type of the images. We need the radiologist in order to find out what is written inside. But with the help of the AI, no need the radiologist. The AI machine, it will automatically read what has been written inside these images, predicting the patient outcomes also. So another application in the AI is that natural language processing, NLP. Natural language processing, it will be used for the, it will extract the information from the huge amount of the data. So NLP also used for the semantic analysis. The semantic analysis means that so the social media is going on, the Twitter, sometimes some harsh word or something is going on, we're not able to detect. So the NLP will be help us if something wrong will be going on. It will be a catch and it will give the username of that particular person that doing some harsh word or something use which is not legally. So it will be help NLP to do that. Also summarization of that topic or the research paper that you want to use it, it will give the summarization of that, and translation tools also used with the help of the NLP, that is we are translating from one language to another language, that is NLP is used for that. Also it is used for the image and video analysis. The image and video analysis generally used in the astronomy to analyze the image processing. There is a various image, and the astronaut generally they are using the image in order to find out some new discovery. So they are using the image processing in the AI. Also pathology, medical image analysis. That is a medical image, CT scan like that already been discussed. So they if they need to analyze without have the radiologist, that can do it. Agriculture also, that can be used in the agriculture for the crop monitoring. In the agriculture, if you that is the water consumption, the soil deficiency, that all the things also can be analyzed with the help of the AI. If you have the more crop monitoring, you have the less water, more water, or we have the soil deficiency that we can be monitored with the help of the artificial intelligence. Simulation and modeling. Another application is the simulation and modeling that can be used in the climate model, economic simulation, and physical experiment. AI also used for the hypothesis testing. Some like the testing hypothesis means something you want to prove it. You give the statement and we have to prove it is wrong or right. That we can use the simulation modeling for the using the AI. Literature review also one of the applications for the AI, that it will be help to find out the literature, also the relevant information, summarizing the research paper. So the research, various research paper that we want to summarize it about the various topic and make a conclusion, that it will help us to find out the summarize of the paper. And it is very useful for the literature review. So here is the different website is available for that. One is the SCI space. The website that we can go with this HTTP typeset IO. It will be help for the personalized recommendation. Anybody needs what work, which area he can work. This website will help him about that, and research trend analysis and cooperation capabilities. The people working with the same field, it will help them to work with that. Now, second is the lead map. It is used for the interconnection of the research paper. The one paper is related to another paper, how it is related, and how much the cost is efficient than another one. All the information we can gather with the help of the leadmap.com. SCI-TI, it is used for the citation analysis and the contradiction, because we have a social study. A different country have a different opinion about the some area, so it will be detected about this site. If something is going contradictorily or opposite or not match with the same thing, that it can be detected with the help of the SCI-TI. Obsidian is the another website through which it will help us to find out the literature review. Personalized learning, AI also help personalized learning, like the curriculum development, individual needs, abilities. Also, it will help in the tutoring system. It will give the immediate feedback and assistance to the students. If the student need any assistance, it will help to get it using the intelligent tutoring machine. Learning the analytics. So with the help of the AI, any weaker student is there. Suppose any weaker student will be there. So it will help the weaker students how he can improve on the particular subject or particular area. It will be help to. It will help and motivate them. Automated grading. Also, AI help the automatically grading about the assignment, quizzes, and the exam. So it will be help to save the time for the tutor in order to that they can give the more time to the students. And natural language processing, it is used for the grammar checker and the chatbot and the language related assignment. Already the chatbot, everybody is familiar with that. They are using the NLP in order to develop it. Virtual lab and simulation. AI-driven simulation allows students to conduct experiment in a virtual environment. The student can do the experiment as they are doing in the lab. So we can make a virtual lab and the simulation with the help of the AI that would be very used in the university level. And the students seem that they are working in the lab and they make their experiment. Language translation also. There is a big application for the AI language translation. We can translate one language to another language with the help of the AI. Adaptive textbook, we can get all the materials if you need, and it will summarize the materials from the different textbook. Also, if somebody not able to understand, it will help us in form of the video to understand the materials. Career counseling, and it will help for the students or anybody who want the career. Suppose some students would go to the medical, some students will go to the engineering. So it will be help to find out the appropriate career for the students or the person that need it. Special education. So it is used for the disability students, disability people, the student not able to, impaired person, not able to talk or not able to see it. So it will be used for the speech recognition. Some person not able to talk properly, so nobody can understand. But the machine, we train the machine with using the artificial intelligence, so the machine can able to understand what the person is talking. The disabled person is talking. What about that? So generally, the human being is very difficult to understand. If somebody is not able to speak, so machine will give the correct things, and it will be find out the what the person is speaking. Also, text to speech. Some disabled person not able to speak, so it will be convert the text to the speech in order to understand the disabled person. E-tech startup, many companies they are using the AI tools for innovative education tools to make that startup. So this is the various application of AI we have, but here we explain some of them. A very famous one is now doing all the application around the ChatGPT. The ChatGPT, that is the website for the ChatGPT. It is the generative AI, and anything that we want, we can give the input right in front of the text, but it will not work as an image or the picture, but any text that we want to give, it will immediately give the response to your input. Perplexity is also the ChatGPT, but in the ChatGPT we have the 3 version, 3.5 and the 4. 3.5, all the information is available up to 2021. But if you go to the higher version, ChatGPT 4, all the information about 2023 also available. And this is the Perplexity is the lower version of the ChatGPT. Education Copilot, it is helped for the template for the lesson plan, writing prompts and education handouts for the students. YPT also through the website, we can convert any text or the website to the quizzes automatically. Quillword is a very famous this day. It is help to paraphrasing. The paraphrasing for anything that you can decrease the plagiarism, that we can use the Quillword in order to decrease the paraphrase. Or also if you have the 3 pages, 4 pages information that we can decrease to 2 pages, that we can decrease the or summarize the information with the help of the Quillword. Grammarly is the artificial intelligence tool. It helps to bold, clear, and a mistake of rewriting. Most of the researchers, they are using the Quillword and Grammarly for their research writing. So now ethical so recommendation for the futures for the AI that it should be used for the society, and there is a ethics, transparency, and the well-being individual for the communities. Ethical consideration that should be the proper guidelines and regulations for that it should not be any bias or privacy or misuse of the artificial intelligence. Responsible for AI and the educations. So AI used among developers, researchers, educators, students to ensure the ethical and safe practice. And interdisciplinary collaborations, the AI researcher and expert, they can be collaborate to each other in order to make some innovative things. There should not be any bias mitigation for that. Data in the AI should be secure, and it should be private, and privacy should be maintained. Education enhancement, further explore development of AI power tools for personalized interactive learning experience and to the students' need abilities. Healthcare advancement, also AI used in the healthcare advancement, like the healthcare applications, medical image generation, images that we can read it, drug discovery, most of the important application of the AI, and the personalized treatment of the recommendation. Human and AI, they can be work together for the good decision making. And AI also used for the creativity, like the new creativity in the field of the art, music, and literature. Regulatory framework, collaborate with the government, because it should be work ethically. So we should be collaborate with the government and regulatory body to establish the relationship, responsible and the ethical framework. And the last thing is the global cooperation, encourage international cooperation and the standard to address the global challenges. Thank you. This is about the AI from my side. Any questions you have?
Okay. Okay. Well, hello, everyone, and thank you very much for an informative session. It's been an enlightening morning, and I want to take you in a different directions than what people have been talking around. Over the last 3 years, I was tasked at the University of Southampton to set up a new department in chemical engineering, and I based the chemical engineering department around sustainability, and we built a very successful system on sustainability. We have over 100 students, and the course has just been nominated by the Times Higher Education as number 4 in the UK out of 30 chemical engineering departments, and we have achieved accreditation. And the second phase of implementing sustainability at the university is to start building a research endeavor around it, or a research center. So my approach has been to integrate the chemical approach through the system. Okay, so we've all know what sustainable development are. We are familiar with the goals and the development of the goals, but my focus has been is how can we effectively implement sustainable development in chemical engineering sector. And for us to do this, we need to actually go back to the step of what is chemical engineering and then build an endeavor around it. Chemical engineering is revolving around the sustainability of raw materials to be upscaled, and then once you upscale the raw material, you process it through the reactive systems to generate the useful products, but you have waste. So you need to think of the separations. I need to think of the holistic processing element behind it. So before we move on to the chemical engineering aspects, we go into sustainability and break it down into its base elements. And it revolves around the 3 components, as we refer to it, is the profit, the people, and the planet, or biosphere, society, and economy, with SDG 17 being the partnership, the stem that threads everything together. And the concept that we are trying to establish here is to meet the SDGs through the manufacturing of chemicals and goods everywhere. So the first element of our research endeavor here is to understand that SDG is a complex system, and there need to be an advanced decision-making tool to actually integrate everything. And this encompasses the fundamentals of sciences to the advancement of engineering and build up the system through it here. And it has to be approached in a systematic point of view. So we need to look at the holistic systems, and we need to look at how we can integrate the full systems together using the linkages between the different 4 Ps that we established for sustainability here. And this gives us then a domain of addressing all the multi-criterias that happens within it here. And we need to establish the objectives, and we need to think of how we can blend them together. So this tailors us back into artificial intelligence and machine learning and building the algorithms in terms of the data mining and in terms of assemble models, to think of how each one of them is its own entity and it has its own matrix, and we need to actually align where the crossovers between these different elements are and how we can bring them together. And AI helps a lot in this element. Another element is to actually look at the life cycle analysis as a tool. And initially, life cycle analysis was all about understanding the system boundaries as a holistic system, looking at the cradle to grave element. And then that was enhanced to address cradle to cradle, which means one man's waste is another man's treasure or input, and then start addressing that. And then LCA has developed into the cost life cycle analysis, social life cycle analysis. So it starts integrating all these elements, and the whole essence or ethos of our research is to try and use these models to then build a holistic system here, to tailor make it for the chemical engineering, to focus on all the problems that link in science into engineering, into the useful products within a successful economy that encompasses the societal elements into it, while focusing on the biosphere element here. So we basically, essentially what we need to do is look at expanding the systems and generating a holistic chemical engineering endeavor that focuses on the entire concept of the 4 Ps as we established in sustainability element here. So that takes us into actually understanding that there is a fundamental link between what we refer to as the mesoscale, what happens in the lab, the microscale, what we do as unit operations in each one of the processes that we have, and then the whole industry or the whole process of manufacturing its elements here. And this helps us then break down what chemical engineering actually is. It's in everyday's life, from the time you wake up to the time you sleep. If you had medication, if you've done makeups, if you've done anything, transportations, energy, a chemical engineer must be involved in that process here. And we said it's all about the transformation of the raw material all the way to the useful products. But we need to link it between science and engineering. And in chemistry, they have the luxury of the periodic table. They choose any element they want. The cost is not an issue. 1 gram, 1,000 pounds is not a significant element to them. If the temperatures are 4,000 or 500 PSI pressures, it's not. If it takes 5 hours or 6 hours to achieve an experiment, they are trying to prove a concept. While chemical engineers at the same time are trying to move from the concept into reality. I can't deal with materials that cost 1 gram, 1,000 pounds. I need 1,000 kilograms for 1 pound. My reverse of the economy causes an ambiguity for me. They use high temperatures and pressures. I need to think of how I can control the temperature and pressures, minimize the capital costs and the running costs that I have for energy, and then operate at the same performance level. At the same time, they want to prove a concept, so they generate the project at an infinite time, 5-6 hours for the process. In my case, when I wanted to generate ibuprofen pills, I need to generate 10,000 pills per minute as a successful endeavor to build a business element around it. So then I need to align what the chemists do between what we do as engineers. And there are several principles and several mechanisms. Green chemistry and environmental engineering, if you link them together, then that gives you a fundamental element of achieving the SDGs and sustainability in a whole processing element. So if we start thinking about the mesoscale all the way to the macro scale, that then gives us the 3 levels here between what the chemists do in a molecular level, what the global scale in a localized village that we have nowadays, where we have a logistics of supply chain, we have a global economy that impacts, we have resources, we have emissions issues, we have policy issues, and then chemical engineering at the process level sits as a linkage between what scientists are pushing the boundaries on and between the reality of logistics, transportations, emissions, all the other elements that we have to do here. So if chemical engineering sits here, it needs to link between the green chemistry at the molecular level, the mesoscale, and between the macro scale and the economical scales through the environmental engineering endeavors here. So the concept of the research that we set up at Southampton here is we need to align what the chemists do to then come up with a product design and then go into the sphere of how we can transform that product into reality, whether it's an existing product like ibuprofen or whether you're bringing new medication out of the system here. And essentially aligning everything together through the development, the formulations, the launch. And you need to encompass within that the macro scale of economy and legislations and all the other successful supply chain issues, and at the same time link it with the societal needs and the confinement of climate change and all the merging issues of waste generation and other things like that. So the whole holistic element is to look at the chemical transformation or industry as a hub that links between the fundamentals of sciences and between the requirements of reality in terms of economy and society and other things like that to bring the goods and help facilitate the functionality of life. So that takes us into what green chemistry are, and then align what the chemists are trying to do in a more sustainable manner. And green chemistry is essentially 12 principles that have been applied over the last 15 years to start thinking of the waste prevention and start thinking of the atom economy, when atom economy is all about what goes in must come out. That's the fundamental. Matter cannot be created nor destroyed. But when I look at a gram of carbon coming into a process, a gram of carbon will come out. Is it coming out at the product or is it coming out at the waste? And how can I convert it more towards the product rather than the waste here? And then addressing the hazards, looking at the alternative energies, looking at the societal elements in terms of using renewable energies or using efficient methods of energies, speeding up the reactions, applying advanced catalysis and other things like that. So it's about addressing the whole concept at the mesoscale element. And then when we start moving at the green engineering or sustainable engineering principles, again, it has a 12 principle element into it here, and they all come from the requirements of the product and the requirements of the process, and the whole essence between prevention and treatment, design for purification and separation, looking at conserving the complexity of the elements here and trying to reduce the chaos that aligns from the tail end of the process or the upfront of upscaling the raw material, and thinking about the durability and the requirements, minimizing, maximizing, integrating the elements of the whole process here and integrating all of them together. So it's an amalgamation between the mesoscale and the macro scale and how we can align these together here. And the concept behind it comes from the process itself. We have the raw material, we need to use it, we use it in our processing factories, that requires energies and waters, and then we generate goods and we generate waste. And the concept behind it is to actually reduce the feedstocks that we have, then reduce the emissions that we are generating, then reduce the demand on energy and water as much as we can, and then try and prevent waste. That's the first element that we do. The second element that we're trying to do here is to reuse some of the energies and some of the heats being generated, instead of being wasted, to be fed back into the process to minimize this element here. Then use the water sectors around this element here, then look at the waste streams that we're generating and think of how that waste stream could be actually fed into alternative processes and reused in a better manner here. And then look at the replacement elements of addressing, first of all, the feedstocks and moving towards the biological elements where they grow every 3-4 months, trying to understand the process of how can I transform complex elements like cellulose and linen into building blocks that come already from the other raw materials, and how I can capture this, reducing the footprints and other things like that here. Looking at the process itself and moving the process from large elements into smaller elements by intensifying, looking at the flow chemistry elements, looking at modularization, or new methodologies to start thinking of how we can process this element. And the last element of what we try to do is bring in innovations in terms of capturing the carbon, recycling the carbon, looking at the process, looking at inventing the new materials, and moving and aligning ourselves with the artificial intelligence to optimize and control the system in a more efficient manner. So the concept of the new research endeavor that we've done here is to actually look at the global problem and address all the aspects of it here, using the life cycle analysis as a complex system and expand the boundaries around it here. We started using multi-objectives and multi-criteria decision-making to come up with the ideal sustainable process, where we look at the different facets and the different criteria from the 4 Ps between the partnership, the planet, the profit, and people, and then what is important for us to maintain the success of the economy while minimizing the environmental damage, while maintaining societal needs, establishing this partnership between science at the fundamental levels and between the global logistic elements that we have to do here. And we've kind of started using advanced elements in terms of fuzzy logic and in terms of AHP and other successful systems that have been implemented. So we put up a working methodology, and when I say we, it started off with me as coming up with the research concept and building it, and now I have the success of 2 PhD students, another 3 starting in January, and at the moment we're running a campaign to try and raise some more funds. We're applying to some bodies here. So the concept that we came up with is look at data collections from the micro scale, from the macro scale, and understanding how the system boundaries happen on one side of the element, this side here, and then align that set of data to build up the criteria of the 4 Ps that we have here, and then establish the framework between the data mining and between the assemble models to build these artificial intelligent linkages to give us then an ability to go and simulate the processes with these decision criteria to come up with different elements from them, to then establish the criteria of what does society need now and what does society need in the long term, what does the economy need, what does the planet need, and how we can overcome it. And then we come up with the multi-criteria decision makings, and we start building these criteria around it to then align everything around the system, normalize it, do some sensitivity analysis, and come up with the real informed decisions to move the process plan forward. And then taking that generic methodology, we bring it down a bit further on, or we drill into it further on. So you can see here a snippet of the full system that we brought in. First of all, I have the chemistry-based analysis, where what are chemists doing and how they're applying the green chemistry, and what products and what processes they're thinking about establishing for ourselves here, and how we can adapt them to existing, historical, and future plans that we have to do here. And then start addressing the techno-economical elements, start looking at the life cycle analysis, start looking at the process analysis, start looking at the supply chain, to build up a set of criterias for ourselves within the 4 elements that the society requires for the success of the SDGs. And then once we establish the criterias, we need to break them down to sub-criterias and think of where the linkages between these sub-criterias and the top tier criterias are going to be, and then come up with a set of weighting to prioritize the sub-criteria and the criteria that we have here, then align them through different models that we have here to come up with the most informative decision we can establish. Because as we all know, when we address life happens between B and D, between the birth and the death, between cradle and grave, the concept of life cycle analysis. And between the B and the D, we are focusing on the C, the choice. And that's why we want to come up with the most informative process to generate a choice or a multi-criteria decision-making exercise to come up with then that choice or that decision from a sustainable point of view, to look at the long term and meet the goals of achieving today's current climate without compromising future generations' ability to establish themselves here. And we took the project at different levels. I first of all started off with the water, and I built up systems between looking at desalination, because certain areas around the world require water, and water is the source of life that we establish. And we looked at large endeavors around the planet, and we focused around the Middle East because that's where the water shortages are. And we looked at the large processing, and we tried to simulate new sustainable large processes. But then the question is, why do you want to go large when you can go small and modularize? And we looked at localization and looked at minimizing the quantity while meeting the needs. And that then gave us this modularity element of distributed water desalination to generate fresh waters based on locality of the demands and based on different elements. And then we build up these models between the economy, the society, the technical elements here, and we build these technical models to demonstrate that capability of rather than generating a large desalination element, that 3 million cubic meters of water, to generate us 50 cubic meters per day or 100 cubic meters per day, and then move that requirement of the small element to a renewable energy source and establish then a framework at a macro level in terms of a whole country like Oman or UAE requiring water, and then build that decision making to demonstrate that there is no need for a large endeavor, because you can do a small endeavor and many of them and still meet the economic success of water desalination, establishing the quantity of water you need in the region without the large capital expenditure, without the large emission levels here. Then we moved on to the building blocks of the society, of chemistry itself, and we looked at IPA or isopropyl as a chemical that we use in different elements of it here, and we build up different models and different systems about establishing factories, about looking at all the economic, the environmental, the social elements, the technical elements, and how we can align all of them together. And we established a new framework for this. And moving forward, as I said, from January onwards, I have 3 new PhD students starting. So we're going to start looking at the water food nexus element. And this is a project that I already started on. We've already modeled ammonia in terms of modularization, in terms of membranes, in terms of different technical abilities. So the student can come in and address the linkages from agriculture between the need for ammonia for fertilizers, the use of water, energy, and then the food demands globally as a futuristic element 2030, 2050, and beyond that here. And then one of the new projects that we're going to look at is start addressing the circular economy, not just from an economic point of view, but also from a chemical point of view about the circularity of the chemicals and capturing and recycling some of the waste here. And the third project that I have is establishing the carbon capture and utilization and looking at the geothermal elements in terms of moving the reservoirs from hydrocarbon generation to actual hydrocarbon storages, but try to build successful models that will align us with minimizing the damages coming from emissions back into the reservoirs. Because at the moment, the down failure of carbon capture, carbon sequestration, all these elements here is the lack of a good economic model to justify profitability of the system here. We also have some ambition in terms of, at the moment, applying for 650,000 with UKRI research institutes to try and generate money to look at the biosystems as part of the energy systems here and establish a full framework. Now, my chemical engineering department sits within the School of Chemistry, and we have strong links with pharmaceutical companies. So we're trying to generate some funds to look at how the pharmaceutical industry can be transformed as well in terms of an ambitious design for a sustainable future here. There are many facets of what we're trying to establish here in my research group, and we at the moment are expanding. We're generating a few outputs here that I'm happy to share with Dr. Allam. We have new projects coming on site, and we're hoping to generate more income to sustain the future of the research. So if anyone has any questions about my research or about chemical engineering or the University of Southampton, what we're trying to do in terms of the micro to macro scale, please feel free to communicate with me at any stage here. I'm sorry I've rushed through the presentation, but I appreciate time is of the essence for everyone at the moment, and we're running out of time.
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you very much, everybody. And I'm very happy to be here with you today. I know we're very short on our time, Dr. Allam, so I'll move through this fairly quickly. So today, I'm essentially going to talk about what I call the fat platform versus the lean reality. And for many of you, you're likely to wonder what the fat platform is and what the lean reality is. So let me briefly explain. In the past, we often referred to developing and non-developing countries, and the new age technology, and in the 21st century, they're referred to the minority wealthy and the majority lean countries. And so today I'll briefly talk about the critical features of how we need to realistically engage stakeholders to solve the problem, the gear of the strategy, and then we'll move to questions. So when we look at poverty and we look at the United Nations, and we've seen this now for the last 40 years, it talked about solving poverty, and now they've moved to ending hunger by 2030. And so when you look at zero hunger, it goes beyond more than just talking about ending hunger. There's an absolute need to be able to show what is truly happening, because I believe that this is a pivotal moment for the wealth-fortified, arrogant, fat minority leaders to demonstrate factual results in the context of making a difference in the lives of many in relation to ending hunger by 2030. We are now in 2023, and if you look at global leaders and making commitments at the FAT platform, it sounds absolutely fabulous. However, the reality of the situation is that the minority rich do give financial aid to the lean majority. However, money in and of itself does not end hunger. What happens is the minority rich stand at the platform and they're applauded for the amount of money that they give. We also know that when organizations receive money around the corner and around the globe, administration takes somewhere between 15 and 40% of that money for administration. And at no time do you truly see factual reporting. So in other words, you see the people at the United Nations all gathered, all looking prim and proper, and they have no realistic idea of what's happening in the field. And so this mentality of ending poverty, of ending hunger, is not simply just a chicken in every pot, as everybody would have us to believe. So if you look at income from the wealthy nations in comparison to the lean nations, you're going to see that wealth in the minority countries continues to grow, whereas wealth in the lean nations continues to stagnate. And so that means what we're doing is not effective, efficient, or solving the problem. And so what I'm saying is there's time now to link the fat platform resources to factual results. When I have looked at the United Nations goals for the last 40 years, and I've done, significant level of rework on it, you don't truly, what you see is here's the nice lofty goal, and we've had presentations earlier today on that, but we've not seen factual results. What we've seen is a skirting of the issue and possible explanations as to why the goal's not being met, and we need more money. What we need to be able to do is move beyond that convincing story to a factual story. That means we have to look at ourselves from the outside in and from the inside out. So it's similar to peeling back a tangerine. And when you peel back the outer skin of the tangerine, you see the segments of the tangerine, but more importantly, you see the connectedness and the interconnectedness, so you can see the sum of the whole. And so rather than standing up at the platform and expressing how wonderful you are and what we're doing, I think you need to now reflect on what the Secretary General has said. Have we opened the gates to hell? And there might be a lot of reality in that statement, because we see massive climate change, we see massive flooding, we see massive fires, and all of this is contributing to our inability to really deal with the factual situation of ending hunger, which is not now in lean countries, it is spreading globally. My challenge is that we need to look at stakeholder engagement at the very essence of the problem. We need to engage people at the very level of the problem to participate in how we're going to measure, how we're going to report, how those fat platform leaders know where they're making a difference, why they're not making a difference, and how they can make a difference beyond the money. And so that comes down to making appropriate and measurable, realistic indicators, not just the word of mouth and what sounds good for a media bite. So part of my strategy today says we really need to identify the objective. Is the objective a chicken in every pot? And that's just my lingo for saying ending hunger by 2030. you know, when they talked about ending poverty back in 2005, it had a ring to it. And a lot of people jumped on the platform and the train took off. Move 15 years ahead, now it's ending hunger by 2030. You know, a message to the UN should be from the world, get a life. What you've set forth is not realistic. More money is being spent on war and warring factions at the global level than it is in ending hunger beyond the money. We need to be able to identify measures, not just on the fat platform commitments and the money, but it's the other steps that they take. We have to identify targets, and we've identified targets. They're nice, lofty, media-savvy targets. They're not realistic. And I think if we all look inward to ourselves, you can shake your head and say, you know, what he's saying is right. They're targets. Are they achievable? No. Are they realistic? No. Are they going to truly happen? No. And so that's why I'm talking about identifying beyond the money initiative. Throwing money at a problem don't always work. You know, as they say growing up, you know, money solves all your problems. No, we all know money don't solve our problems. What it takes is ingenuity. It takes engagement. It takes moving from beyond around the corner to around the world. And so what we have to be able to do is we have to quit talking and we have to begin doing. Now, you know, the person that made this quote, Walt Disney, was in his day visionary for what he established. And if we took that same principle from the minority wealth and applied it directly within the lean environment, we could make a difference and we wouldn't see children with nothing to eat from day to day. And I think that if we went into the field, all of us, and seen what this truly looks like, your life would be shaped forever in a different way. Every time you put a bite of food in your mouth, you'd think. Every time you took food and moved it to the garbage, you would think about the waste. So, you know, here's the goals that the UN have identified: end hunger and ensure access, end all forms of malnutrition, double the agricultural productivity and income, ensure the sustainable food production systems, maintain the generic diversity of seeds, increase investment, correct and prevent trade restrictions and distortions, adopt measures to the proper functioning. Those are all great. Next year, look at what they're actually reporting and what's actually happened. You see no ground level stakeholders in any of the perspective within these targets. What I'm saying is have stakeholder engagement initiatives at the local and regional levels to identify what success looks like and the yearly targets. Ask the people right on the ground, what does ending hunger look like beyond a financial contribution and an applause at the United Nations? Look at the introduction of cooperative central models at the local and regional levels. Look at sponsorship of local and regional cooperative-led initiatives. Look at funding to support local and regional business associations, because it's not just about ending hunger, because you're not going to be able to continually put a chicken in every pot. You need to be able to ensure that the initiatives last beyond today, beyond tomorrow, and going forward. And what I've provided here is just some examples. In 2005, I presented to the international trade in Germany with 2,000 people on how we needed to engage stakeholders. And following that, Emerald Publications put out a series of 5 books on corporate social responsibility with myself and Dr. David Lamond as the editors, and we had an international engagement. And it received great fanfare. However, it didn't shift business from A to B or from point 1 to point 2. And what we've typically seen and continue to see is a surge in saying we need to do something. And let's take the next 10 years to navel gaze, and we'll report on we had a wonderful navel gazing exercise without a true measure. Now, I come from a minority, fat platformed type of country where our PMO is giving out money like it's rain, but we're not truly seeing how it's having an impact on the bottom line. And what we truly need to be able to do is we need to be able to move beyond sounding great at home and at the UN, so that the majority lead environment can see factual results at the ground level to demonstrate that the tsunami, which is on the horizon, or as I said previously, what the Secretary General has said, that we need to keep the gates to hell closed. And my question is, are the gates to hell slowly opening? We can all make a difference, but we need to act collectively to invite all of the lean stakeholders at the lowest level to identify how we need to measure factual results to end hunger by 2030. Not just talk, we need to see demonstrable concrete results. If we collectively do that, then we can truly make a difference. My legacy going forward is very simple. I want to make a difference where it really counts. I don't want to see starving young children anywhere. I don't want to see starving young mothers anywhere. I don't want to see starving grandfathers or grandmothers or youth anywhere in the world. So we need to go beyond the chicken in the pot. We need to go beyond asking the stakeholders at the bottom of the level how we can make a difference and what we can do to make that difference. And I thank you all for allowing me to present.
Okay. I use higher education and universities interchangeably in this presentation. Yeah, my next slide, please. Yes, the Africa Sustainable Development Report 2022 stated that now halfway through, many countries in the world, especially in Africa, are unlikely to achieve sustainable development goals by 2030. Next, please. The reasons were quoted: the coronavirus pandemic, the war in Ukraine conflict, and climate change have all contributed to hampering this progress. And I added to that the lack of constrained donor support. Next, please. The report evaluates Africa process towards the SDGs and the objectives of the African Union's Agenda 2063. I assume people are aware of the Agenda 2060, which were produced by the AU in 2013. And when the United Nations General Assembly adopted the SDGs in 2015, it recognized Africa Agenda 2063 as a roadmap for development in Africa, but asked the African Union to incorporate parts of the SDGs which are either not incorporated in Agenda 2030 or already dealt with marginally, which has been done. And this report gives in-depth analysis of these 5 SDGs, and it calls for higher order strategic approaches for pushing forward the two agendas of the SDGs and Agenda 2063. So next, please. The conclusion is that African member states, especially those south of the Sahara, are not on track to meet the intended goals and targets, and some acceleration is required if we are going to achieve at least some of these targets. Next, please. We know that SDGs expanded the focus beyond primary and secondary education, unlike MDGs and education for all. And that was obviously positive, but it just puts burden on higher education. Having said that, there is general agreement that many stakeholders in Africa are still either skeptical or not really doing anything to involve higher education and to enable higher education actually as one of the enablers of change towards achieving the SDGs. Next, please. Okay. In Africa, obviously, at the time of independence or shortly before, colonial powers usually establish single university, which is traditional university based on British or colonial models, university governed mostly by scholars and which values academic freedom and so on. Africans look for higher education to improve their lives and to solve their problems, which are still there. And although university or higher education has contributed to development and provision of professionals to fill in the posts vacated by the expatriates who left after independence, generally the impact on people's lives has been marginal, and people still live with those problems. Next, please. In then the role of universities, as we view it as a driver for change, driver for achievement of goals of development, were not very clear at that time. Next, please. In the 70s, when many African countries were facing economic difficulties and juggling competing priorities and so on, there were questions were being asked about the role of universities. Are universities actually good value for money? What are they doing to solve the problems Africa still stuck with problems of poverty and lack of good services, disease and so on? And that tempted the Association of African Universities to hold a workshop in Accra in 1972, more than 50 years ago. And that meeting produced what we call the Accra Declaration, which calls for universities in Africa to become development universities. Some people use developmental universities, and that means universities should now orient all the academic disciplines, research, and community engagement towards developmental issues. This was received well by some academics, by some politicians like President Julius Nyerere of Tanzania at the time, and by the World Bank. However, there was a lot of skepticism and objection. A lot of people thought that deviating from the traditional university model dilutes the message of the university and dilutes the academic standards and so on. So not much progress was achieved. Next, please. Again, in that meeting in Accra, there was a call upon governments to steer universities towards contributing to development through provision of adequate funds. Now, universities governments did interfere in University of Africa at different times, but that has not always been towards actually pushing them in the direction of government. Quite often it's just to serve government's interest of political control over universities or appointment of their cronies who often lack credibility, and that led to a lot of tension and even open conflict in some universities. Next, please. In 2009, the Association of African Universities, aware that not much progress has been made, again held the General Conference in Abuja in Nigeria, and the title was Sustainable Development in Africa, the Role of Higher Education in 2009, which produced again the Abuja Declaration, which again pushed in the same direction on revision of the educational system to effectively achieve higher education for sustainable development in Africa. I was in the next slides, I will enumerate some of the objections and concerns which were produced at the time, because some of them are still being reiterated by academics in many African universities. Yes, second, please. Next slide, please. Yeah, so the barriers first, there was not enough funding. Again, capacity among staff members for implementing the development model as well, because the schism remains between policymakers and academics. Politicians say, are accused of ignoring what is happening in university and research which comes out and from university. At the same time, politicians say, we go to these academics, they don't give us alternative policy choices and so on. So there was talk about how can we train academic staff so that they can really implement this developmental model. The mindset of the staff, again, all trained in the traditional institutions. And the other thing is that people fear that excessive engagement of staff members with governments and development agencies, we want to take them away from their other duties of teaching and research. Next, please. And then there was issues of career progression for individuals. The existing formal standardization requirements and qualifications framework, which had to again be changed to accommodate the requirements of the new developmental model, and the university ranking, which depends mostly on publishing good papers in high impact journals. And so many academics would like to probably want to concentrate on that rather than getting engaged into initiative with government, with development agencies, or with the communities. Next, please. Now, there was a call more than 20 years ago that issues of sustainable development should be approaching jointly with issues of climate change, because the two are interact on a number of levels, and climate change is already hitting Africa very hardly in many ways. But despite this, over the last 20 years, very little progress was made in that respect. However, more recently, next please, 3 important documents came out which actually emphasized the need for this joint approach. First one is the World Meteorological Association Climate Change Threatening Sustainable Development Goals, which state that monitoring the global climate indicators as well as their related risks and impacts is of critical importance for achieving the SDGs. The second document, next slide, please, is the Sustainable Development Goals of the United Nations, which state that the confluences of crises dominated by COVID-19, climate change, and conflicts are creating spin-off impacts on food and nutrition, health, education, the environment, and peace and security, and affecting all the Sustainable Development Goals. Climate change report is a code red for humanity impacting across the SDGs. That was a statement by the Secretary General of the United Nations. The third is a document produced by the African Union, a committee chaired by the past President of Kenya, President Uhuru Kenyatta, AU Climate Change and Resilient Development Strategy and Action Plan 2022-2023. The realization of Africa's Agenda 2063 cannot be possible without proactive collective continental efforts aimed at addressing the impacts and encumbrances of climate change, which hampers our integration and development. Our economies greatly rely on climate-sensitive sectors, which have great similarities across the continent. Next, please. There are a lot of barriers to research on sustainable development and this joint approach with climate change. One of them is complexity and uncertainty about the long-term effects of climate change. Also, the issues of complication between the different departments and the need for balancing honest, credible, cutting research with informing community. Communities need simple message which are consistent with common wisdom so that it can change into actually policies. But we know research doesn't work like that. And we know that in issues of climate change and sustainable development, quite often there are research outputs which might not be consistent with common wisdom. Next, please. Again, department communications, because issues of sustainable development are discussed and dealt with in colleges of economics and political science, sociology, so on, while climate change is basically a natural science. And then publishing and funding mechanisms continue to encourage disciplinary focus. And again, there is no clear criteria for recognizing interdisciplinary efforts. So individual academics prefer to put their effort to become expert in their own disciplines rather than getting involved into multidisciplinary groups with main interest of impacting their societies. Next, please. Then the need for shared knowledge production, different approaches, we discussed that, and focusing on impact measures. Next, please. Politics. Climate change is a political issue. Governments are very sensitive to a lot of things related to climate change and its effects, and what governments are actually doing to mitigate this phenomenon. And this will affect the ability of research, of universities and research centers to communicate their research honestly to the society. Next, please. Okay, now I just want to state that there's so much at stake for our continent and the world that it is not a question of if universities want to get involved. It's a question of how to get involved. And we cannot waste more time, actually. I lost my screen. I have my screen, but I don't know if it's available to people. So it's a must now for universities to get involved in these issues. Now, research is a driver of social and economic development, and it has been directly or indirectly. So we need to transform research and science in general to help transforming societies towards SDGs. 3 qualities of research now are important. Previously, people will emphasize the rigor of research. People want to do excellent research, which is publishable in high-impact journals. But with rigor and excellence, we need relevance now. Research needs to be salient, timely, usable, and effective. And the 3rd criteria is legitimacy of research. Research has to be endorsed by users and other stakeholders. I want to say, despite this, there are success stories for universities in Africa which have been successful in getting involved very seriously and successfully in issues of SDGs while they continue actually to conduct their traditional role of teaching and other university traditional roles. The Times Higher Education Impact Ranking of 2023, 2 universities in Africa are included in the top 100, which are the University of Johannesburg in 46th place and University of Pretoria in 69th. 2 universities actually came first, University of Johannesburg for its contribution to SDG 1, no poverty, research on poverty and support for students from poor families, and Nkrumah University of Science and Technology in Accra ranked first for its contribution to SDG 4, based on its research and contributions to early years and lifelong learning and commitment to inclusive education. Several other institutions also fared well in the work, mostly in South Africa. And those universities in South Africa are very good at actually publicizing what they're doing. A lot of literature is available. So I want to finish by saying that I think the burden on higher education institutions in Africa in particular now is great in helping their societies trying to make use of the coming few years in achieving at least some of the SDGs. Thank you very much.